Hello.
Hello, Hans.
Oh, hello. You can hear me well.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, very well. You sound very good.
Good, good to hear.
Yeah, yeah. You're welcome here. Where are you located?
I'm from a place called Wisconsin in the
Yeah.
US.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've heard of that.
It's
Yeah.
cold here. It's a
Is
lot
it?
of snow.
Oh, really? Yeah. It's a little bit cold here as well, but we don't have any snow. It has been snowing sometimes during the winter, but we are actually living in the hottest city in Japan. It's called it's called Tajimi. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
good.
it's pronounced Tajimi.
Yeah, Tajimi, that's right. And it's actually, we're on the record for being the hottest city in Japan, but in the winter it'd be pretty cold. It's like a bowl, inside a bowl and surrounded by mountains. So there's some sort of a microclimate here that makes it pretty hot in the summers. So 41 degrees Celsius or something like that. But in the winter, it can be pretty freezing. So I have a stove going on here, kerosene stove just next to me.
How hot does it get?
About 41 or 41, almost 42 degrees Celsius. If you know about Celsius, we don't have the Fahrenheit system here.
Well, I'm hoping we switch over to the Celsius system.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty easy for us to understand. Actually, born in Sweden. I was born and raised in Sweden, so Celsius was a Swedish guy.
Well, your English is very good.
Thank you. Well, I'm getting by. Well, we have a little company here, and we're just three people, but one man is from the UK, so we're speaking a lot of English in the company. And there's one Japanese, my wife, and myself, Swedish. So very small but very global.
How did did you how did you end up in Japan?
Um, it's a long story, but to make a long story short, I think you'd say out of curiosity, I was a traveler. I like to travel a lot, and I spent a year in the Middle East um, in a in a kind of a little society called a kibbutz. It's kind of a, how should I say, kind of a, yeah, proto sort of socialist kind of society where everything is shared. You don't have any possessions, but it made it very easy for me to stay there. I didn't need any money, no food, no room. They all provided it to me. So I wanted to travel for a long time. So I spent 1 year there working in the fields and stuff like that. And then I got curious about, further out in Asia, that's the Near East. I wanted to go the Far East and travel around the world like that, working my way around. But then I studied East Asian studies since we're back in Sweden, and then I got a grant, and then I got to Tokyo, and then I just stayed on. So that was 1989.
How long did it take for you to acclimate and learn Japanese and everything?
Um, Yeah, well, I started back in Sweden at the university, but it's when you study by books, uh, yeah, it's limited. So I knew some when I came here, but I think I got warmed up in about half a year or something, but I'm still learning.
Well, that was very brave of you.
Uh,
I think that was very brave.
well, yeah, kind of, but I got my courage there from traveling. When I traveled to Israel to stay there for a year, I went by train because I wasn't brave enough to go by plane. I never flown before, so I went by train. Took me 2 weeks.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, took forever to go there. So a long train down to Israel, then by boat to Greece, then boat to Israel, then train again, and then bus, and then hitchhiking in the desert for the last bit. So actually, that was braver than going by plane. But Yeah. How about you? Do you like travel as well?
Not particularly. I'm more of a homebody,
Yeah.
you might say.
Yeah. But now you're out.
Although I enjoy camping. I like going
Ah.
into the wilderness and
Ah.
being
Ah.
away from people.
Oh, okay. That's very nice. Well, this is a way of traveling too, isn't it? Out in the
Yes, I think so. I think
yeah,
so.
and you don't have to go anywhere. You just you don't you go just mentally, I guess.
Yeah, and visually, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I actually this is part of my job. I'm running a VR company, so
How did that start? How
uh,
did you convince people to
ah
do VR stuff?
uh, well. I moved. I lived in Tokyo for many years, but then I moved out here to this small city, Tajimi. By Swedish standards, pretty big. It's 100,000, but Japanese standards, yeah, it's not so big. And they wanted to promote tourism, inbound tourism, but they don't have any brand. Nobody knows about this city. So how could we make people try before they fly? So we decided that maybe this is one way. We also do tours in 360 photos, as you know, to get people to get a taste of what it's like and what people are like and so on. So they thought, okay, that's a fun idea. Then we just got started, and it just grew from there.
Did you build all this? Did you make all this?
Yeah, yeah. I made this. It took me 2 months to build all the stuff in here, and we'll see it a bit later. But it's kind of a story. So this is kind of a story told in 3D. So our city, Tajimi here, is famous in Japan for pottery. It's got a very, very high grade clay all over the place, in the mountains and everywhere. So people made pottery, ceramics, since thousands of years back. There are kilns everywhere. And so we wanted to show what pottery is in VR. And that sounds very far-fetched, but the thing is that the samurai in the medieval ages, they were crazy about the tea ceremony. And in the tea ceremony, the most central piece there is a tea bowl. And those famous tea bowls, they were very, very expensive, and they became status objects, like having an expensive car or something like that. And they could give it them as gifts to, allies or to people they wanted to impress or whatever. And they had this tea ceremony. And so we made a tea ceremony experience. So we can talk a little bit about the pottery and also that medieval world and how it's connected all together. So that's the idea.
So if I was a high-ranking samurai, how many tea bowls would I have, do you think?
I don't know, but they're very expensive. They say it's kind of like a kingdom for a tea bowl or something like that. Even today, the expensive ones they cost like a luxury car or something like that. So we are also making 3D models out of tea bowls and other pottery. So we put them on the web, and we put them in experiences like this. You cannot put models in here, but in other experiences or on the web shop. And now everything is the remote. Remote thing is big now because of the coronavirus. So now people realize, okay, this might be a good, safe, and cheap way to travel and to meet and to see the products and whatever and have these experiences. So now it's much easier than before. So yeah, there's been almost 7,000 people coming here to look at this, and yeah, it would have been impossible to do it in another way. Uh, when you don't,
Yeah, 7,000's a lot. That's a
yeah,
lot of people.
yeah, a lot of people. I haven't toured everybody, but many people, and a lot of people just come in, 24/7. They come in and look around and find things. And we have some games as well, so you can try samurai style archery. Archery works very well in VR, and sword practice and stuff as well. So yeah, so we try to combine these adventurous parts with this seemingly so boring pottery, but actually it has some exciting aspects to it. What are you doing in Wisconsin?
Do you have pottery for
Yeah.
do you have pottery for us to look at today?
No, because in this experience we cannot import models. I can point you to our site or to Sketchfab if you heard of that. We have lots of 3D models there where you can look around afterwards. And
Sure, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we have captured some very nice pieces there. And right now we're just helping a neighbor who's got a kiln to put up a web shop with 3D models so people can look at them in all different angles and make them large and small and everything without coming to actually see them. So I'll point you to that. They're pretty nice. What are you doing
Thank
over
you.
What are you doing over in Wisconsin?
You mean work-wise or just kind of life-wise?
Both.
I ended up here.
Yeah.
I went to college here,
Yeah.
and then I found a job here, so I ended up moving on over to Wisconsin.
Yeah. I can hear
And
you have.
right now I actually work I work at the government
Oh.
doing auditing and stuff.
Ah, I see. Like in accounting or?
Yeah, in like state law and
I
policy
s-
compliance and stuff.
I
Yeah,
see. I
yeah.
see. Okay. Okay. So you're checking that everything is working okay.
Oh, yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that. And then that's what I'm doing more or less.
Oh. Oh. So yeah. Well. So actually, in here you can go up. I made this so that you could challenge these stairs. Go up. When I was making this, I was pretty afraid because you feel you're actually very high. So I made it. It's about 40 or 50 meters high. 40 meters high, I think, up there to the actual stage. But I built this one by one. I built them as I climbed and as I built them. So I made one box and then I put one on top of the other, and then I climbed up, and I fell maybe 200 times, I think, before I realized I could fly here as well. So I got pretty scared, falling from up there. It's kind of, but you can actually go. There's a fast route as well. So if you touch that ball, there's going to be another ball appearing in front of you. Then you go halfway up, and then the next ball you'll be almost all the way up again. So you just have to touch them with your hand.
Right now.
Yeah, you can do that right now if you like.
Right now?
Yeah, and then you
Oh,
just
okay.
and
All right.
then try the next ball, and when you get up there. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just go ahead. Ah, good. And you can actually jump very high here, so you can I'll do a huge jump here. There we go.
How do you not get dizzy doing that?
I have very strong VR legs. I'm in VR several hours a day. I can do. I've never been sick in VR actually. I am sick
Really?
I'm sick in cars, on boats and things, but I don't get sick
And
from this. Yeah, my brain is too numb.
and not brave enough to fly, but brave enough to hitchhike in the desert.
Yeah, that's right.
Uh,
Yeah. Well, if you go over there and stand on that little blue stone there, you will see something going on there. Stand on top of it.
How long did that take to make?
Um, that's pretty fast. It's just you just record a couple of times to make it right, and yeah. So it wasn't too hard. But the actual, they have all these tools built in this software. So there's a lot of things to play with here, and you can make games. You can even do some programming in here. And I'm not a programmer, but it's visual, so it's kind of one way to get started in learning the logics of programming, I think. So I'm planning maybe to do something for kids or for other people who want to start building things like this. Make some sort of a YouTube series or something like that, how to do it in a simple way. It's actually much easier than you think. You just need to know how to use the tools, and then you can build anything you want. Yeah. But I tried to recreate some of the Japanese reality, like, for instance, have you heard of the Karisansui, or the stone, I think they're called stone gardens or dry gardens?
Yes. Yes.
I used to be a tour guide in Japan a long time ago as well, for travel companies, and we brought them to these kind of stone gardens, and we had a gardening tour, Japanese garden tour, and everybody was kind of surprised. Where are all the flowers? Where are all the greenery? They say, and because they have a different concept in Europe about what a garden is supposed to be like. This is not about the beauty of flowers. It's more like a kind of a, how should I say, a meditation tool. So you have some sort of a bench or something to sit on here, and then you can just sit and sort of empty yourself. And these patterns will take you away to another world. It's kind of an old-time VR kind of thing. You travel places.
Is this one of the ones that you can that you're supposed to rake or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're supposed to rake them. So they rake them daily. The monks, I think, they do it daily. They make patterns. So that's also part of it. So it's kind of a pattern you can imagine things like maybe it's the sea with islands and things on it, and maybe and in some gardens they have kind of a trick, so that kind of a puzzle, so that you cannot see all the stones at one time unless you go to a certain position. So that's one of the most famous gardens in Kyoto. They have something like that. So this is modeled on a real garden, sort of the same dimensions and things, but a little bit smaller. Are you in the index now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
I'm hooked up to the Steam Index.
Oh, good. In that case, all the stones and things are round. But if you're using the Quest, for instance, there'll be edges to them because it cannot handle the graphics as well with that small processor. But in the Index, this should look okay, I think. Yeah.
I think this looks fine.
Oh, thanks.
This looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And over here, for instance, the stone lantern here, you can see it's it's very hard to make perfect round shapes like this. Here, it's all sort of cubes and edgy things, so you have to make a little, it's very crude, but it sort of gives you an idea of what these stone lanterns are like. And, a little more. Yeah.
Can I touch it?
Sure, go ahead.
Can I?
It's not. It doesn't have a collider, so you can go through it, I think. Yeah, this is supposed to be moss, so yeah, yeah.
That's very nice.
Thanks.
Very nice.
Yeah, and this is the actual tea house, and so I told you that they were crazy about pottery, but it's a whole kind of experience. They say that the tea ceremony in Japan is sort of the ultimate experience of Japanese culture in a way, because it covers everything. It covers the garden, it covers the interior design, the sort of its idea of the house being part of the outside nature. So outside and inside, there's no clear division between them. It covers the ikebana, the flower arrangements. You see one over there in the back, and you got some poetry, the scroll on the floor, on the wall there. And you got this actual ceremony where you go through all the movements. It's all like a big rule book in a way. Every movement is regulated. You have to do it this way. If you pull out a handkerchief, it's going to be like this or whatever in different schools. So that's also to bring you into the, to being in the moment. That's the whole idea. So it's not religious in that sense. It's just appreciating being here in this moment. This moment will never come back, probably. So we should cherish the moment, cherish the person that we meet. And in order to do that, they do this silent, long ceremony with the tea and the tea drinking and contemplating things and just being together. That's the whole idea. So it's very simple in a way.
Sounds a little bit serious. It sounds like these could get pretty formal, huh?
Yeah, very formal, and they're very different schools. So people, a lot of kids, they study tea ceremony as well. So they have different schools that do these movements in different ways. But you can also, but there's also even more serious parts of this because if you look at the history, I have made a little story here. Oops. If you go over here, you see these tea rooms. That's where these medieval samurai had their meetings. You can say in today's language, it would be like a business meeting or a war room. You could say in many ways, because there was a 100-year-long war in medieval Japan. And it was a very dangerous world. So the tea room was kind of a silent, safe place to be as well. But in there, they had a lot of negotiations and, making new allies and things. So there are a lot of secret conversations going on there, actually. And in those days, the tea ceremony was not as serious as today. It was a lot more, they played a lot. They brought in, prostitutes, there's a several days long party, wild things going on, but also this quiet ceremony as well. So the tea master, the most famous tea master, is called Senno Rikyu. I made a little image of him there. You see he's dressed in white. And the reason he's dressed in white is he's going to have to use this. This is a kind of a real size imitation of a harakiri knife, or seppuku it's called. So it's got a little, wrap the handkerchief around it so you can hold it. And then you're supposed to cut yourself open in a very elaborate way and die. That's an execution method by forced suicide. And he had to do it because that most powerful samurai at that time, who was trying to unify the country, was very suspicious of everybody. And he thought, because he was overhearing so many conversations, that maybe he was spying. He was a double spy, or a spy for the enemy. So he decided he had to commit suicide. So that's
sounds like a dangerous job.
Very dangerous, yes, in those times. So so that's how
who
we
was
ended
it?
up. His name
who
was
ordered that?
It was Hideyoshi. Is the three powerful samurai in that area that they all tried to unify Japan. The first was Nobunaga, and he was also a wild guy. He was violent, but also very interested in foreign culture, and foreigners started to come into Japan. So he brought in new technologies. He brought in firearms and things that they didn't have before, and he dressed partly in Western clothes, and he was a kind of a wild guy, but he got assassinated. And then Hideyoshi came, and they both had this tea master, same tea master. So he took over for Hideyoshi, and Hideyoshi was also trying to unify the country. He invaded Korea. He had plans to take over all of East Asia, so he wanted to invade China as well. They tried several times, but they were repelled. He was close to getting the country into one piece, but he died from sickness. And then came Ieyasu Tokugawa. So Tokugawa, he won all the wars. He sacked all the castles, and he unified the country. So after that, it was a long period of peace called the Edo times, the Edo era. But all the foreigners, no foreigners could enter the country. It was forbidden. They also forbade Christianity because the missionaries had tried to sort of infiltrate the country before. So they were very suspicious of all kinds of infiltration and everything. So that's part of the reason we don't have much Christianity in this country now. So those were the three. And Hideyoshi was the name of the guy who condemned this. But it's kind of funny because he's smiling there. He's not supposed to smile, but I just on the camera he got caught smiling. So it's a little bit strange, but funny.
Yeah, it's quite a tale.
Yeah.
So was that were the three was that during the 100 Years War in Japan?
Yes. No.
Was that during that period?
The first two of them. The last one, Tokugawa Ieyasu, when he won, it was about 1600, and so that's where that internal war ends. That period ends. The medieval sort of wars ends, and then this Edo era starts. So he is the first ruler of this Tokugawa era. The Tokugawa rulers were very, very powerful. They kept everybody in strict control. As I said, you couldn't go into the country as a foreigner. You couldn't leave the country. That was, by capital punishment. If you left the country, that's punishable by death. So
I always hear about the Emperor of Japan and whatnot.
Yeah.
And this sounds more of like a military guy. What was the emperor doing?
The emperor was, if you go further back, the emperor was the ruler of the country, but he was also sort of very much a subject of sort of control. It was like a puppet in one way. There were many other people trying to manipulate him and trying to marry into the imperial house and so on. So if you go further back to the Heian era, in the beginning of the first around 1000 and maybe even further, maybe 900, 800, you go back another period, all those emperors, they were central figures, but they were also not really ruling the country. The military or the aristocracy first, they were ruling in sort of in the backstage, and then as you go on in history, the police started to become more and more powerful, and they were out in the country, so it was hard to control all those districts, and they took over. So they became the samurai. So they took over the government. So they established something called a shogun. Maybe you've heard of that. So that was sort of the general, the highest military commander, and he was in fact ruling the country, while the emperor was a symbol. There were emperors who tried to make a revolution and to take over. And actually, one of the samurai in Tajimi, our city, he was part of a coup. They tried to take over the government, went down to Kyoto, but they failed. They were discovered, and they all perished in the fight there. So the emperor was a shadow figure in the end, and became kind of much later, in the Second World War and so on. He was like a godlike figure, but still a symbol. So they just used this symbol, to unify the country. And still, the emperor today is, he doesn't have any political power. So that's a different route, so to say. But the samurai, they were the real power holders until the end of around 1868 or then the Americans came actually to Japan. They came with these black ships, they call them, and they had gunboats and things. And the Japanese didn't have any cannons, so they were sort of very shocked into trying to modernize the country. And that's where they brought back the emperor again. He came up to Tokyo. Tokyo was called Edo in those days, but he was brought up to Tokyo and became the figurehead of the new government. And they modernized super fast. So it's unique in the world history, I think, because no other country is going from third world to industrial power like Japan did in those days. But Japan is still still very isolated for the same reason. They have this long history, so people don't speak English here much. You'll find that almost maybe not 1% can speak. Have a conversation like this. So they've been culturally isolated. No, a lot of people are surprised, but that still this culture remains. It's an isolated country. So now, I hope is to use this new medium where we can meet like this. You can be Wisconsin, we can be in Tajimi, and we can still meet and, share the culture.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So I have to ask. I mean, one of the prominent times that I think about the Japanese emperor is at the end of World War II.
Yeah.
You were saying he didn't really have any political power, but
right.
I thought he was the one that isn't he the one that got on the radio and spoke to the people to end the fighting?
Yeah, he was still the.
So how did he sway the people to stop? How did he get everyone to listen?
Well, as I said, the emperor was after the Tokugawa era when they collapsed and the American gunboats and everything, and the new government had been established. They brought in the emperor as a symbol to unify the country. So he was not a political powerful man, but he was still sort of a godlike. They brought him into a godlike like kind of figure that he, like above everybody else. And they were fighting they would give their lives for the emperor. So people had something to fight for. And it became more and more extreme. So it became kind of a cult, you could say. So in Japan we have a religion called Shintoism. It's a nature religion, you could say. So there's gods and spirits and waterfalls and stones and rivers and mountains and things. And the emperor was part of that story. So. He was also one god in that story. So they utilized that to make him a symbol, but he never had the real power. So, but still, he was this powerful symbol. So when the emperor said on the radio, no, it's over, then actually people didn't really understand him because he spoke in an ancient language that people couldn't understand, but they knew that he was talking about something, and they never heard his voice before, and they never seen his picture. He was not allowed. You couldn't watch him in the face, in the eyes like this. That would be a crime. So it was a shock to everybody when he came out and spoke to people. And I know my grandmother, my grandmother-in-law. Do you say that? You have the wife? Yeah. Okay. So I'm on my second marriage, but my first marriage, my grandmother-in-law in my first marriage, she told me about when she heard from the speakers. She was working in a factory, and they all were gathered one day, and this strange voice from the speakers talking to them, and what is he saying? And she was asking the factory manager, what is he saying? Oh, he said, keep on fighting. He said, he lied to her, but everybody realized that day that it's over. She was working in a factory to make balloons because there was a kind of a last-ditch attempt to attack America. They made balloons that could fly in the stratosphere, and they had fire bombs, and they would fly in the stratosphere. And people didn't know about the stratosphere, the winds up there in those days. So they could travel over to California, and the idea was to set all the forests afire to distract, the attackers of Japan. It didn't work well. It was only, one school class was killed by one balloon because they were tinkering with the bombs that had fallen down. So that was the story.
Well, it's an interesting idea, though.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. The Americans thought that maybe they were using U-boats to carry these things and to send them up because they didn't know about the winds up there. Yeah, so it was quite elaborate. And they would, if they started to go down a bit, they They had a sensor to drop weights so they could fly higher again. So it was kind of, elaborate. Over here we have, I'm going to dress up now as your team master. So if you go here, you can actually become, and now you're a samurai, yeah. This is a samurai, yeah, I made it so that it looks nice when you sit down. So, yeah. Yeah,
This is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, as you know, in Japan, they didn't have chairs. So we still sit on the floor formally. You sit on the floor on, kneeling like that, on your heels. So I made them so that would look nice when you actually sit down on your floor. So you can sort of have a more realistic experience of the tea experience. Yeah, you look pretty good.
I'm sitting right now.
Yeah.
I'm sitting right now.
Yeah, you can feel pretty comfortable doing that. Yeah. I'm also going to sit down. Oops. Sorry, oh, yeah. Yeah. That's another thing. Oh, yeah. I haven't told you, but I have little traps in here. So in the tea room, you're not supposed, the entrance, the actual entrance, because of course it's got walls all around. This is just to be able to show from outside what it looks like. So the idea is that the entrance, the door, is very small, and that's the reason is that you're supposed to bow down, you be humble, you forget all about, even if you're a powerful samurai or powerful person, a rich person, doesn't matter. Everybody's supposed to be the same. So you have to sort of hunker down and go through this entrance. And another story I've heard, not sure if it's true, it's very difficult to enter with a sword like that. So you're in a very vulnerable position. So it would be, dangerous to try to attack people inside through that door. So that's another. So I made little traps. So if you try to go right like that, then you're kicked out again. So you have to go, it's a little bit difficult, but you have to go under this sort of symbolic, into this symbolic entrance like this. See if I can make it here. It's not easy, but you can do it. Yeah, good job there. Good job.
Okay.
You seem to be pretty comfortable with VR. You have been using your headset quite a bit. You know the controls.
Yes, I play a few video games in VR. That's where I started.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually until I bumped into a YouTube video of you that I ever considered VR as an educational tool.
Really? What video was that?
I can't quite recall, to be honest with you now.
Yeah.
I've seen a few of yours now. And,
okay. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Well, I'm very happy. That's the idea, to sort of to bring out. My hope is that people can do that. People in small cities all over the world, or villages, or whatever, can meet like this and learn about their own cultures, and maybe will become a more peaceful place, hopefully, in the world if we do this more.
Yes, I think so. Just as soon as everyone realizes it doesn't really matter where you're born.
Exactly, it doesn't matter where you're born, and you just happen to be born in one country. But had you been born somewhere else, you would be different. And I think it's a richness we can bring, like sharing.